The code sets up high standards of performance for motion picture producers. It states the considerations which good taste and community value make necessary in this universal form of entertainment. Respect for law, respect for every religion, respect for every race, and respect for every nation.
It was a code about morality in films.
The 1920s was unlike anything seen before. An economic boom ushered in a whole new modern world. Hair got shorter, skirts had gone from the ankle to the knee, makeup, which had previously been worn by fast women and actresses, became an everyday thing for the everyday woman. A new type of woman emerged, the flapper. In 1934, 4 years after the Hays Code was put in place, two scandalous films brought pressure onto Hollywood from the Catholic Church. The films Babyface and Red-Headed Woman both depicted morally corrupt women who used their sexuality to gain wealth and power and still got to live happily ever after.
Merely a strange interlude. Strange interlude nothing. When I kiss them, they stay kissed for a long time.
Every actress in Hollywood was influenced by the studio. They had to really fall into line of what the studio wanted. They were trying to keep the themes very morally driven and themes that were not controversial in any way. They had their set standards of how a person was supposed to look, to be a softer female or a more harder character, a more determined woman, or all these different character types, and they would do so with the hair and the makeup.
By the 1940s, the world was at war, and things were quickly changing for the women at home.
World War II was also the start of the pinup era, so there wasn't a GI out there that didn't have Betty Grable up on his locker. After the 30s and 40s, things were never quite the same for women at home. When the men came back from the war, the women were very different than they were prior to them going.
Films starring strong female leads became popular, with Betty Davis playing some of the toughest of them all.
Walter, listen. I've got the whole story on how Williams got that gun and escaped, and I got it exclusive. Yeah, that's right, and it's a pip. It cost me $450 to tear it out of Cooley.
Characters like the ones portrayed by Rosalind Russell were beginning to have careers that were influenced by women's work during the war.
I think that every time that we have turmoil and we have wars and society gets to be too much for people, they always go back to a time where they feel like life was simpler, like things were better. So they always look to the past when that happens.
And I think that was really an important time for women, not only to feel sexy and beautiful, but also to feel empowered to be a woman, to be able to stand up for themselves and do what they want to do.
The makeup and the clothing of the 1930s, I think, is one of the most feminine types of clothing. And if you look at like red carpet looks nowadays, you see that tailored look, and those dresses cut on the bias and very long figures. Those are all 1930s silhouettes, and they're just timeless.
Over time, the production code lost its relevance, and by 1968 was switched out for the Motion Picture Association of America rating system.
There are actresses today who start their own production companies because they want to have more control over the projects they do. They want to have more control over who they're working with. Some of their production companies, Drew Barrymore, great example, hugely successful production company.
There were many talented women who have made their mark on Hollywood.
Women have gone from being middle management to running networks, running studios, heads of major companies.
The 16th annual Celluloid Ceiling Report revealed that there have been no increase in the amount of women working in film over the past year, with women accounting for just 16% of directors, writers, executive producers, editors, and cinematographers working on the top 250 domestic grossing films of 2013.
I think when women reach a certain level, at least 10, 20 years ago, you would walk in a room, whether it was a project or it was a network or studio or you were running a company, and you'd look around and you go, oh my God, I'm the only woman here.
The production code has ended, and the question remains, when will we recognize these Hollywood broads and dames as women?
It's just a question of time. You make a date for golf and you can bet it rains. You're teeing off at 8 and you're still on the train. Suddenly you realize you missed the game. It's just a question of time. It's just a question of time. The days go by, the nights go by, the rent gets high, but it's of no importance, you're a wealthy guy. But someday you'll go busted if I die. It's just a question of time. So live it up while you're able.